Oh, look at that. We're done with one agenda item. Okay, someone added rescheduling this meeting. Do you want to talk about that real quick?
Oh, I did. There's just like a follow-up to my comment when I joined. We don't have to talk about it now. It's better to save it for later.
Cool. Let's do it after the standing items.
Sounds good.
All right. Cool. So I guess starting with standing items, we could kind of do a quick roundup for status updates. I think last time we broke it down into like the different, like, what is it, sections or sub-teams, right? So on the platform side of things, we're getting a lot of PRs for, one of them for sure is tech debt. We're making changes to the acceptance tests. I think Simon's been working a lot on that, getting that progress in there. Myself, I'm working on volume mounts, the read-write volume mounts. That PR is in draft right now, making some final tweaks to get all the tests passing. And outside of that, I was looking into the SSL CA certs, and I was pinging a couple people, Emily and Steven, about some of the findings and what we really wanted to do. My hope ultimately is to maybe just do with the rewrite volumes and provide some sort of guidance, whether it be like a blog post or a guide on our website that kind of explains or kind of walks you through how to be able to add system certs to your build process, specifically for Mac. At least we know that works. So yeah, that's kind of where I wanted to shift focus onto this rewrite volumes RFC implementation. That's what I'm working on right now. David, do you have anything else, David and Travis, for platform?
Have a PR for pull policies in, and that's pretty much what I worked on the past week.
For me, thanks again, David and Javier, for the review of the yank command for the Buildpack registry. I just merged that in a little bit ago. In addition to that, I am still working on some refactoring, better error handling around the GitHub actions to consume registry, Buildpack registry issues that come in through GitHub. Once that's done and we've banged on it a little bit, the next phase will be integrating it into the actual Buildpacks organization. And then there'll be some other things that I'm going to work with Joe on, like some media, trying to get it out there basically, and hopefully people can start using it. We have people here in Heroku who we can already have start moving over, like our Java, our Node, and other language build packs to start making use of the registry. Let's see. Outside of that, we have, his name is Supratik or something.
You can go by Supra.
Supra, okay.
That. Yeah.
That's even easier. So Supra, I've been working with him a little bit on pushing the registry build pack support through just regular Git and helping him with that. So working on that a little bit. There's really nothing else though besides that.
Cool, nice.
Yeah.
All right, anybody on the implementation side want to kick that section off?
We are trying to finish lifecycle 090 and make it implement platform API 4 and Buildpack API 3 and 4 and ship it this week. There's a couple things left. Timing's getting a little tight, but I think it's still possible.
What are you doing in this meeting then?
I asked myself that when I joined.
Cool. Anybody else, anything else they want to add? Okay, I could speak a little bit about the learning side of things, the learning team. Recently, we added the features page to the buildpacks.io, where it lists all the features to the best, that I could put together, and then a comparison across some of the like more explicit alternatives to Buildpacks. That was linked to on the homepage, and I got some feedback from Cash Up on the Pacato side, where he thinks that we could make that kind of transition a little bit better between the why used Buildpacks and then to the feature set, I guess you could say. So I'll continue to add a little bit there. That's something on my sites. And then the other thing I want to really work on is a community section for the buildpacks.io site, and where one of the like really good examples is the what is it, Linkerd.
Yeah, you shared that. That was super cool.
Yeah, their community page has a lot of really good, immediate like actions you could take. And so having a page like that, I think, would be very beneficial to the community of contributors here. But anyways, I'll kind of brainstorm a little bit and propose something once I get something, on paper. All right. That's it. All right, planning. We could talk about planning next. Okay, so this is the SenHub board. The VMware team has strictly gone onto using just this board for pretty much everything. So we don't have our separate backlog. And in that, we're hoping that we start using this, more collectively as a whole project. There are a couple items that did come up throughout the week that we added on here. One of the things from Micah had to do with a rebase issue that he found, and he's trying to propagate through GGCR, ImageUtil, which, if my memory serves me correct, we'll have to get lifecycle updated and then pack to update the lifecycle dependency. So a little blocked on the pack side, but it seems like it's got a little good traction behind it right now. The last time we had this meeting, we kind of like weaved our priorities into the top of backlog. That is something that we could continue doing. Some of the feedback that I did get back was that there wasn't a lot of lifecycle stuff at the top. And I don't know if that's something that we want to focus in on this meeting. How do you
I
feel
like I don't necessarily want to use the ZenHub board for lifecycle, mostly because looking at this as someone who's not as focused on pack right now, to me, this feels in some ways like the wrong level of detail. Looking at like what a subteam that I'm not 100% focused on is doing, I wish I could like zoom out and just see like the high level, like what group of things is likely to ship in the next release, rather than have to think about the individual priorities of issues relative to each other. And also, I'm not quite sure how I would weave lifecycle stuff within this priority queue, given that we're sort of have been operating as separate groups in some ways. Which is one of the reasons I want to come to this meeting to talk about this, because I know I probably am supposed to be updating this board, but I'm not sure that it feels valuable to me, and I want someone to convince me otherwise.
So I guess part of what we're trying to solve in, generally having this meeting and then moving into SenHub is kind of reaching out a little bit more. And in this case, being able to have at least, Travis here, and then Jesse, which I know was here last time. And, hopefully we could get a lot more of the contributors to keep coming to these meetings, is that then we could have those sort of conversations about what's important for the individual sub-teams outside of just the immediate teams at the different organizations. So I guess my question would be, how would the stuff that, let's say, Jesse would want to work on, how would he know what would be best for him to prioritize? If we're saying that this is currently like platform focused.
I think I want the meeting to be platform focused, but I'm not sure like a board with swim lanes that goes across sub teams makes sense to me. Like in the life cycle, we have milestones that in a lot of ways correspond to spec releases and have to have sort of feature-based releases because we're trying to implement discrete versions of the spec, stuff like that. So have been organizing issues in milestones, then people can pick up stuff that's slated to be in the next release. Has sort of felt like an appropriate level of prioritization. Like if it's going to be the next release, it's a higher priority than if it's not. And then within that, like I haven't really felt the need to prioritize those things against each other. I don't know how other folks who've been looking at the lifecycle feel about that though. Maybe Natalie or Ariel could chime in.
I think from, sorry, not Natalie and Yael. I'm very happy to cede
Simon
the
can
floor
also chime in.
if they wish to, but they seem to be jumping in a bit. I think one of the conversations we had is that I think one of the desires from our sort of internal company-focused team of people that are working on cloud-native build packs is that we can have a kind of consistent space where we can get a view as to what our priority would be for especially for those who don't have a sort of pre-existing idea of like, oh, I know exactly what I'm going to jump to next. I'm not saying let's supersede that. If we already know what we want to work on, we're very comfortable. But I think in order to get more of us just sort of being able to gently familiarize ourselves with the different code bases, it would be really useful to have like that single view. And even if it just means kind of allowing us to internally put the priorities side by side, wouldn't necessarily change the priority for you, right, Emily? I don't think we're saying that if we were to have lifecycle stories interweaved with this backlog, you would then have to suddenly start working on 3 pack stories before you could pick up a lifecycle story. But it would mean that once I'd finished those 3 pack stories, I would have the opportunity to then say, okay, I guess we've decided collectively that the next big thing for the whole project, the project as a whole, is I want to pick up this lifecycle thing.
And also, just chime in on that, like I haven't necessarily done, personally, I haven't done much lifecycle work in the past, but that's not to say that like if I didn't know that something was especially important or that something was good, easy, low-hanging fruit, I wouldn't go to do it. I just don't think to look at the lifecycle issues as much, and I don't know what's easily done.
Well, I definitely see the ask. Like people want to know how to contribute. I feel like to put it in this priority board, I would have to weigh its priority against the priority of things in pack, which I don't have a good sense of at the moment, what the priority of things in pack are. I'm not even sure I care at that level of detail, right?
What if we don't?
Like, will it ship or won't it in the next release more than being able to
So what
weigh.
if we don't put them against each other, right? So like right now what I did was I just kind of collapsed and removed a lot of stuff that's not important. Like I think even the image util might be important to the implementation team. So in this particular view, right, it might be easier for you to be able to prioritize those items, right? And then I guess still at a high level by looking at this board, we might not interweave so much the priorities of the platform team, the implementation team, and the learning team, but we still do have a high level view of the things that are important, at least relative to each other within the different teams.
I have a feeling that this conversation relates to the other topic that I added to the document, the way we want to work with lifecycle in general. Javier, I think that you want to bring this up today with Emily. So
Yeah, I mean, we're having a pretty open conversation. I think it's valuable. Like, I don't want to go just straight off of the agenda and say we have to fill out the backlog, right? I think this is really healthy conversation that we're having. So
no, I'm just,
if you want
I'm
to
just,
elaborate, go for
yeah,
it.
yeah, I'm just saying that the conversation of how do we want to work with ZenHub, I think it relates to the issue of how we want to work with lifecycle in general, and not only related to ZenHub. But maybe you have a different point.
So, I mean, could you elaborate a little bit on that? When we're
Yeah.
talking about
Okay.
life cycle, what do we
Sure.
mean?
Yeah,
Exactly?
so yesterday we had a conversation during stand-up, I think, or in, I don't remember in what meeting, but it doesn't matter, that Nali and I had a meeting with Emily of how we want to work on life cycle issues, whether we want to have a stand-up once a week, or, I mean, how do we want to bring issues in general so people will be able to work on them, and whether you brought up maybe we should have a squad, or I don't know. I mean, we had a different opinions on how to work on life cycle in our team. So I thought maybe it relates to how we want to work. I mean, to bring the issues of pack and life cycle to ZenHub. I feel that these two topics relate to each other, but.
Okay, yeah, so I guess the conversation from that, that meeting was more or less, there was a kind of thought that maybe there should be a stand-up where at least I believe Natalie, Yael, but it should also be kind of open to a lot more people than that, where the implementation team specifically on lifecycle could talk about what the priorities are and what could be done. And one of the suggestions was, why not have it as part of this meeting, right? And I think that sounds like a good idea to me. I don't know if that would solve it and if there really is a need for a separate meeting, but I think that goes above my responsibility, right? Like that's something I could dictate.
I think there's maybe isn't required to have the focus on a prioritization. I think that's where we're maybe tripping ourselves up in this situation. It sounds like we're more interested in this kind of bucket and what we're going to move in terms of like changing the goalposts in response to external factors, i.e. how much we've done, is the release timing as opposed to the feature sets. So we're basically saying these are of equal priority. We will do them all, barring some unforeseen cataclysm, and then we will make a release almost regardless of how long that will take us. So in which case that doesn't really need a prioritization, but what we do need in order to kind of asynchronously be able to pick up pieces of work without worrying about duplicating effort is to have a known state for each of the things in the bucket. We need to know if someone's doing this already, if someone started it and put it down and the stuff exists on a branch somewhere, if someone like fully intends to do this in a way that they don't want anyone else to interfere with, or whether this is genuinely like good to go, get started immediately.
I think that makes a lot of sense, that framing the problem, especially for life cycle, where we're sort of boxed into doing feature-based releases rather than time-based releases by the atomic nature of the spec versions. And I'm definitely not opposed to having a meeting where people who are interested in that work. We can like go over what state things are in. I do wonder if a lot of that can be communicated through GitHub as well, right? Like if you're assigned to something, it means that it's not available to pick up. And I know for things that I've created a lifecycle issues for in the past, if say like the spec isn't finalized yet, I'll stick a special label on it so that like maybe you can start working on it, but know that it's not, the exact wording isn't in the spec yet. So it's kind of something to keep an eye on before the release, stuff like that.
So I guess those sort of, little things like labels and conversations, if they're not happening or at least relayed in this meeting, how do we find out about them? Like, how do we know what a label represents or what's available, or even the fact that the life cycle is using milestones, and that in order for me as a new contributor to be able to say, hey, I want to contribute to the life cycle, how do I know that I should be looking at milestones as the highest priority item?
Yeah, I think we definitely need to do work on the documentation there, right? Contributing documentation and development documentation that describes all of that and capture it in the lifecycle repo itself.
My alternative proposal would be, could it not be as simple, to kind of align with what the platform side does, which is more on the time-based release, where in here, the backlog listed here could be only the stuff in the milestone. If you were to just drag them into this area, there's still only one area where we could point any new contributor to and know that anything in the backlog is stuff of importance. It doesn't seem like the overhead would be significant either.
Is that something you can automate?
Even better, right? Like I think we can, right? Like all of this sounds automatable. Even if something is assigned, it automatically goes to in progress. I thought that was a really good idea. I don't know the API to SendHub itself, but it seems like it should be feasible.
Yeah, I feel like we could definitely do that. Just every time we cut a release, drag the next release milestone into the ZenHub board.
Cool. Is there more conversation to be had here? Or do we agree that we're going to try to at least get the SendHub to be reflective of the state of the world to some degree?
So I've been thinking about like what we are trying to get out of coming together for, X amount of time every week, right? Like one of the things is clarity on the priorities, or further clarity for whatever could be, found in ZenHub. But I feel like there are other reasons why you have face-to-face meetings, and I don't know if we're trying to cover all of those here, but like, for example, just context sharing or helps, I'm working on X issue right now and I'm stuck here. Like maybe that's something that could just be had in Slack, like a conversation that, maybe then proceeds to, Zoom or whatever when it's required. But I don't know. I'm not exactly sure what I'm asking of the group, but like, do we feel that we have established the right practices so that people who are interested in contributing to either platform or implementation or whatever else can get the support that they need?
I like the idea of trying to use Slack more if we can. Like I've seen teams that sort of have a remote or have a text-based stand-up, right? So like once a day in a specific channel, you just write a sentence or two about what you're working on. So it gives everyone a chance to look for areas where they are like, oh, I know what that person's worked on. Maybe I can help them, and also get an overview of what people are up to. I feel like that could maybe be pretty valuable for us.
Yeah, I totally agree and value asynchronous, or just, having a very distributed way of communicating. I do think that having these, in this case, biweekly syncs is valuable in that it does at least it provides us a certain point in time in which we could all get together and actually communicate things that might be too hard to communicate via text, right? I think some of those conversations are the same reasons why we have, the working group meetings, and we go through and we talk about RFCs, because it's a little bit difficult, and it's definitely different to have those conversations in a sync format versus having to write up a whole page worth of, of a brain dump to express your thought.
Yeah, I'm all for that. I think personally, part of the reason why it's hard for me to turn to public Slack as the first choice for asking my questions is because often my question is going to look something like, I just realized that I have no idea how this thing works, but maybe that's okay, right? We're all here. we were all beginners once. I don't know.
We also have a private
Emily.
channel, right? Like a contributor channel.
I'm
right.
actually okay. Like personally, I'm okay with being more exposed, but I could see how some people might not feel comfortable.
Cool. All right, so I think we're done with the status updates. So now talking about, the planning side of things. I don't know, I feel like we kind of broke out. We went into this like different rabbit hole, different conversation. It seems like the things for lifecycle are slightly, different in the way that they work versus pack. I'm not entirely sure what to do about it, at least for the platform side of things, where we do prioritize items and we work more based on, whatever can make into this release cadence versus having specific milestones. I'm not a proponent of changing that, but it doesn't mean that we can't have that conversation. But yeah, so maybe that's something that the platform team could take separately. But I don't know, I feel kind of weird about it, because even though that's a decision that platform maintainers can do, I feel like we get a lot of really good value and feedback from other people, right? I think, Emily, in the last meeting, you proposed certain things that you wanted to get done that I don't think otherwise we would have cared to add to the top of the backlog. I don't know if there's any actual thoughts, there. But if we look from that arena at what the platform side of things is going to do, are there any kind of, maybe the real question is, instead of prioritizing every single item in the backlog, it's more like a place in time where anybody could bring up anything that they'd want to add to the very top, right? Something top of mind to them. Aside from this rebase issue that propagates to different aspects of the system, I think there hasn't been a lot of requests. There is something that came up recently, which I maybe wanted to run by everybody, because it is a pack specific thing. I don't know if this is the right place, or we could just do it asynchronous, via Slack. But I don't know if you saw the conversation with Cora and Ben, where they were asking about supporting GitHub specifically, or like Git repos for app source and Buildpacks. Are there any strong opinions there? Because when I did a review, or when I was doing a comparison of S2I, there was S2I and Co. Both of them are very like Git friendly, in which if you point them to a GitHub repository, it'll just work. And that UX was really, really nice. And not having that in Pack was kind of painful, because then like the instructions aren't just like, hey, point to this like repo. It's like, hey, go download the source code, and then you could actually point to it locally.
It definitely was nice. Let's say as part of Cloud Foundry, they were able to just say like, yeah, CF push, and then pass the link to the Node.js build pack. Let's say, but with S2I, they did note the difficulty of having it, when it's further down in the tree.
Yep.
It's definitely a feature I think that could be useful for people, and definitely could be useful for just the initial trial, let's say. I don't think power users would necessarily be doing that, but it's definitely something that can make setting up an initial trial of Pack much simpler.
Yeah, I might investigate it further and propose an RFC for an experimental feature of such a thing. I think it might require looking into Buildpack URIs for Git specifically. Something that we don't have. Cool. So yeah, I've looked at this backlog quite a lot. I'm curious from a life cycles perspective what that looks like for the things that are important. I know that that isn't on this document right now, but if we were to look at the Buildpacks life cycle, is that where we would currently see what is being worked on?
Yeah, you want me to show the milestone?
Yeah, life cycle.
The cycle of life over here. Oh, I can't share while you're sharing. If you stop sharing, I'll show I guess you opened it up, right? Never mind.
Yeah. Are we sharing the same thing?
I wasn't sharing because it didn't work.
Oh,
but
cool.
Yes, we're trying to finish the stuff in here. This is the highest priority set of work. Most of it is in progress, except for the one Windows bug. I saw a comment on that the Windows team tried to validate it and couldn't reproduce it. So I was going to go back and see whether it is reproducible on my machine now or not, whether it's like a machine difference or it has been fixed by some other change to master accidentally.
So the multi-call launcher, is that what I think it is? Is that
Yes.
where you could set a different entry point for process type?
Yeah, status on that right now is the export doing all the right things, and mostly I've launched doing all the right things, but I need to rearrange some things to test it well.
So I know that sorry, go ahead, David.
Is that going to need something on PackSend also?
No. It will mean that when you launch processes, the way it accepts arguments will be different. That's usually with people launch their app images with Docker run rather than with Pack. And a lot of these changes that are going into 090 until Pack supports Platform API 04 and tells the lifecycle to use it, you won't really see any of these changes. So there might be a lot of features in the new lifecycle, but as long as Pack is still using the old API, things will look the same.
Cool. So I think this is going to enable us to have that or at least replace the pack image to use pack or build packs by being able to have the like entry point that's more directly associated with the execution and additional arguments, right? Awesome. Do we have a story for that?
I think so. Didn't you?
I think David did the pack image already, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That story's
Yeah.
been closed.
So we probably need
That's
another
few weeks
one.
ago.
Yeah. So we'll need another one to essentially update pack image to dog food, essentially. Creation to use pack or build packs. I'm gonna say build packs. Okay, I'll fill this in later.
Does Heroku Builder have Go as like a build pack? I know Keto and Google do, right?
Yeah, I think we're gonna want to use the distroless one as well, right? So I think the Paquito one probably be the best builder to use. Cool. Anything else on the agenda? Seems like we're stalling out on the planning. There's not a lot of planning to do this time. All right, we have recycle this meeting, or sorry, recycle, reschedule this meeting.
I'd put that there. I don't, maybe we can just like, maybe it was preemptive, but it just feels like the working group is a high concentration type of meeting. And then just like, as I realized, oh, I have to do another high concentration meeting right after, I feel very tired. But maybe it's just me.
I would not immediately, but in a few weeks, I'm going to be moving across multiple time zones, and this is going to be pretty late at night, this time slot. So I would also advocate for moving it, hopefully any day of the weekend earlier. But we can. I was going to raise that when I was actually there and trying to figure that out.
Having a meeting around midnight is the best.
A meeting around midnight. That honestly, one of the thoughts that has come up is also instead of having this every other week, which is kind of a pain to schedule. I was gonna throw out the proposal of shrinking the time to maybe 30 minutes and then doing it weekly. So overall, the rescheduling that comes to my mind, make it early, make it weekly, make it 30 minutes. Does that work for everybody? All right, nobody said no. So I'll go ahead and make that happen.
Do we need a mechanism to determine a viable time for everyone, given that we can't see everyone's calendars?
Yeah, I mean, typically this is really hard to do. I could look into Calendly, but I don't think we have a paid version for it yet. So honestly, one of the things that I've been doing is just reaching out to Travis and Jesse, since I could see everybody else's calendar, and just pinging them and seeing if certain times work for them. So I'll probably just do that. See, lifecycle work, that's a agenda item.
Yeah, we have already talked about it.
Cool. Last but not least, there are certain people that are gonna work a booth. Is everybody aware that is working that booth that they have to sign up by end of day today for the booth? I
By
think
sign
we're
up, do
missing
you
Jesse.
mean? Oh, go ahead.
No.
That Google sheet. That's how you sign up.
No, you have to like actually register for KubeCon.
Oh.
Yeah, so like there's an email, I sent it in a private Slack that you should be looking for. It has the instructions for how to sign up for KubeCon and a certain code that you'll need. And the sign up, the registration isn't quick. I mean, it has a lot of, typical questions like what projects do you use, blah, blah, blah. So just, it takes about 10 minutes. It's not a 2-minute thing.
Thank you for clarifying.
So I think Travis, Natalie, Jesse, who's not here, so I'm not sure what we're going to be able to do there.
I've been emailing with Jesse. He's on vacation, but he reached out asking if he should sign up for it and take the spot. And I told him, yes, sign up for everything. And so hopefully he does that. Having somebody on the VMware side reach out to the people at the CNCF and just to make sure that if we don't get him and other folks all perfectly signed up with the correct email addresses and everything, that we have some leeway and that they can fix stuff after the fact. I've been working with our event coordinator people. They're going to put together a nice booth and find demo videos and all this stuff. I think, Emily, we're using your slide deck and maybe a demo from one of your KubeCons at the top, if that's okay. It's going to be a whole deal.
Yeah, Ben Hale redid a demo for us specifically for this event. So he took your spotlight, Emily. Sorry.
Did we get that to? Does Garima know to give that to? Okay.
I've been coordinating with Garima and them. Also, for those, at least the ones that are working the booth, we're going to get some shirts or something. And so I'm going to be designing that here in a bit.
Sorry, go ahead.
I think I may be able to do some of the hours certainly on the 17th and 18th, just to have like my movers coming on the 19th. So everything will be a bit in question, but I definitely should be able to do some hours for the booth for the 17th and 18th.
You're not signed up for the booth, or I don't think you're on that list of the 5 people that they're going to add to the booth staff people thing. I don't know how much it matters, and actually the Project Pavilion is open to anybody. You don't have to have just to be an attendee. You don't have to pay anything for the Project Pavilion pass. There's like a complimentary pass, so you may be able to be in the booth and talk to people. But if you want them to designate you as a moderator, we can do that, because I think we can add more than 5 people. We just can't give people free passes to the conference on top of that. So the question is, are you registered for KubeCon in the end?
I haven't registered yet for KubeCon EU, but
if you I think you can
we can take that offline, I guess.
Yeah, it's also the first time I hear about it, so I would love to get some more information.
Do we need to register, Stephen, if you plan on participating in the booth?
So
Yes.
you're on the booth list. They told us to pick 5 people for it. So you're on the booth list, and you should have got an email that has a free registration code. So you can do the whole thing for free, and then you'll get put in a booth thing. Use the same email as you have in your Slack. That's the main thing. Whatever email you put in your Slack, because that's the one that went to the booth builder people. If you're not in that 5 list, which is Travis, Jesse, me, Javier, and Natalie, I think we have extra passes if you're not signed up for KubeCon, and I can get those because I was already signed up and I expensed it and everything, and so mine's open. And Javier, I don't know if were you signed up already?
No, I was not.
We have 1 extra pass at least. I think we can figure out. Natalie, were you signed up? Or okay, so
it's only $75, so I don't think it'll be a big deal to get more. Yeah.
Natalie, or sorry, Yael and David decide who gets the free pass and who has to expense the thing. I guess it's just logistical. It shouldn't. The cost on VMware side is fine. And then we can get you added to the booth list. But I kind of need that by the end of the day, if that's okay. whether you want to do it. So reach out in the maintainers channel. Sorry, this has been like a whole mess of stuff over the past couple of days.
Yeah.
I'm working through half of that. That's the reason why I'm not paying as much attention here, is trying to figure out logistics for this. Thanks.
Cool. Anything else on that? All right. So yeah, we could, if there's nothing else, we could have 10 minutes back of our lives. Get that lifecycle release out, we win. All right. See y'all.